So here we are. We're now in the third decade of MCC's 50 years of existence. And the subject is justice. The reading from Isaiah, as Philip pointed out to me the other day, really speaks to the things I am passionate about. Feeding the hungry, giving support to the homeless, but most of all, standing up and doing what is right. Like the old wristbands used to say, WWJD. What would Jesus do? Funny enough, my spiritual director asked me that very question at our last meeting. When we were talking about my dealings with the council, and as many of you know, I usually swear at that point, but for this recording, I won't. What would Jesus do? How would he handle it? The answer proved way more challenging than I would have thought. Because Jesus would have challenged the injustice inherent in the current system. But he would not have done it from an adversarial point of view. He would have challenged it, but from a place of forgiveness. It is easy to criticise and condemn those who we see acting in a way we believe to be wrong or unjust. But it's much harder to approach it from a place of forgiveness, from a place of positivity and support, of help, not attack. It made me realise that I, like many I suspect, have been looking at it from a us, as in me and the guys I support, against them, as in the council, authorities, the various funded organisations and lots of local groups. But I won't name them all. Perspective. When Jesus would probably have seen it as just us, not separating the two sides of the issues, but bringing them together, treating them equally. For me, that's a huge shift in perspective. That I should be approaching the council and associated bodies in the same frame of mind, with the same open-hearted beliefs that I approach every person I speak to on the street. After all, we are all human, I believe. We all make mistakes. And the pressure on those in authority to squeeze every penny, to not be called into disrepute, to be seen to do something, must be immense. So I need to understand and educate, to help and advise, to raise issues constructively, not destructively. Not an easy task, and definitely not my go-to stance, that's for sure. I get quite riled up and passionate about things, so... But then, it is easy to condemn, to rail against the system, to scream about injustice. Much harder to deal with it, to approach it, to understand it, and with that, offer alternatives, positive moves that will change the system. We often speak out against the people and the system, instead of for the change we want to see. That doesn't mean we shouldn't protest. We shouldn't stand up, speak out loudly against injustice. It just means that we should do it without animosity, without condemnations of individuals. After all, if people are aware of something that is wrong and do nothing, they are as much a part of the problem as those doing the actions. So that started me thinking about justice in perhaps a slightly different way. And you'll be glad to know I came to some conclusions. Otherwise this sermon would just be me rambling for hours about nothing in particular. Don't look like that. This is going to be brief, don't worry. MCC has had some major successes in fighting for rights over the years. Protesting injustices, mostly big important stuff, which led to the formation of the Global Justice Institute. All good stuff. Hurrah for us. But it occurs to me that there are at least two clear forms of justice or injustice. The global and the local, for want of better descriptions. The global form, for me, includes the fight against racism, equality in marriage, equal pay, all those big issues which affect large groups, and once challenged and once beaten, tend to spread to other places around the world and affect change in other countries. We see that usually because it makes the news. Whenever there is a new win, a new move forward, a new change, we see news items about it, and sometimes even movies. Particularly lately with a recent spate of socially aware movies hitting the screens and highlighting issues, although usually historic. The local form, on the other hand, gets less press, gets less notice, but is no less important. After all, many of these great global shifts began as local protests, local issues being challenged by small groups of people who are passionate about something or other changing, about making their community a better place, affecting change at a very personal level. Now that to me is very important, change at a very personal level. After all, if we truly want a society that is inclusive, accepting, affirming, whatever the terminology you choose to use, whatever is PC at the moment, it is the attitudes of the individuals within that we need to change. Yes, we can pressure government, local authorities, etc. to make up some more rules or get rid of some of the current rules. All positive steps, depending on the rules, obviously. But if the attitudes or prejudices of the people around us are unchanged, then the injustice will still continue, but perhaps more insidiously. The attitudes of the people create the atmosphere in a community, which can work both ways. It can create a place where all are welcome, all are safe, all are valued, or it can create a place where the different is treated with suspicion, or even open hostility, where attacks are, just a part of life, or injustice is just the way it is. Neither of those attitudes should be acceptable, condoned, or left unchallenged, as they allow those who are more vocal, more opposed to inclusive rights and freedoms, to become the only voice people hear. And they can be very persuasive. We only have to look back in recent history to see how easily entire nations have been swayed by a few powerful, unchallenged voices to cause huge atrocities. So, you'll be glad to know we're going to go back to my original thought for today, about what would Jesus do? After all, as Christians or followers of Christ, isn't that what we should be thinking all the time? Isn't that what should be driving our thoughts, words and actions? What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do if he witnessed someone hurling abuse at a disabled person? What would Jesus do if he learned that vulnerable people were being put in danger? What would Jesus do if he saw injustice upon injustice being heaped on those who cannot defend themselves? Would he stand up, shout out, challenge the behaviour? Would he walk the halls of power, raising awareness of the issues? Would he challenge those in authority over policies and actions that cause injustice? I believe he would do all those things and more. He would be there with those suffering, supporting them, caring for them, walking with them. But equally, he would be there with those who are causing the suffering, enlightening them, opening their eyes to the very real outcomes of their actions or inactions. So, although as Christians we should always ask ourselves the question, what would Jesus do? I think the bigger question, the question that desperately needs to be asked and answered, is what will we do? Thank you.